wonderful, wonderful weekend as always, despite the fact that there is a lot going on about the virus. I won't go into details with that, but I'm 100% sure you all know that. Now, what have I got in today's program? Africa Diaspora Political Action Committee, ADPAC. Is it the way forward?
Absolutely.
I think it is, yeah. With a population of Africans on an increase in the West and other parts of the world, a single voice is needed to ensure that their needs are met both at home and abroad. Hence, the Africa Diaspora Political Action Committee. The question is, how all these needs can be addressed. The Western countries have got their own problems. The African countries have got their own problems too. So isn't this a bigger problem than this organization can handle? With the knife crime around us and all the other African problems here in the UK, this is one of the things that we are going to talk about. Now, my guest tonight will share some light on this issue and many, many other interesting issues about the African continent and about that organization here in the UK. Mr. Dean Okai is from Africa Diaspora Political Action Committee. Mark that organization, a political organization that is lobbying the United Kingdom government on our behalf as African. A motivational speaker and a highly respectable member of the African community here in the United Kingdom. Welcome to the program.
I feel very welcome.
Yeah, right. It is. I just need a little bit of clarity about what African Diaspora Political Action Committee does and what it's going to do and the do's and don'ts and so on about it. And you being a member of it, obviously.
Absolutely. You see, we work backwards.
Yeah.
Because in my first incarnation, I'm a reverse engineer.
All right.
So a reverse engineer looks at what works very well, deconstructs that, and then reconstructs that.
Okay.
What the reconstruction involves is identifying the personnel, the policies and procedures to put the vehicle back together.
Yeah.
So what do we look at that works very well? APAC.
APAC, yeah.
Which is the Israeli lobby in the United States.
So
if you're a president and you don't go and grovel very well to APAC, you will not be an elected president in the United States of America.
Yeah, okay.
So since we see this works, you see that so-called Jewish people in the United States have a dual interest. Traditionally, the problem is that with those in the diaspora, they have a singular interest in the territory that they're in.
Yeah.
So be that France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States.
Yeah.
And then we're isolated and we are black, which is like Palestinians, you're stateless. Now, stateless people are no people because by and large, black people are without culture. And we're all obligated to uphold, promote and preserve our culture.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I saw is that we must have a dual allegiance. That dual allegiance must be to Africa.
Okay.
And then you think, well, there's 54 countries. And then let's subtract 4 countries that are in North Africa because they're not specifically for us. So then we've got 50 countries to work with. And as you outlined in the beginning, they all have their own unique socio-economic problems. And then you've got to look at a diaspora who may be romantic and naive to the concerns on the ground. So then a beautiful vehicle came along.
Yeah.
The 6th region of the African Union.
Yeah.
The African Diaspora Region. And when I looked at the clarity of that organization, what I had in my cerebellum, I knew I only had to translate to the page and then go on the recruiting scale.
Yeah.
Because let's just take for granted that anybody can set up a charity or a limited company. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's all about the personnel. There's no substitute for lived experience. So when you have expertise that goes across education, economics, housing, media, politics, health, you know that you have such a body of expertise. You now have the capability to become a nation inside of a nation. Now, when you can turn that into a turnkey system that's modular and scalable,
Yeah.
All we have to do is get that right here and then hand off the black print to each territory. Now, all of those territories will plug into the African diaspora region within the African Union. So more than that, what I do, my role, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, is to be a problem solver and to connect personnel and resources.
Okay.
So be that my brother in Florida with the Sable Ascent coin, which was designed as a Pan-African crypto coin.
Okay.
So every time I come across banking delivery partners on the continent, I'll introduce them to Daryl.
Okay.
If I come across somebody who has mining rights, gold, diamonds, whatever the resource may be, I introduce them to Daryl, because a currency must be underwritten by assets. So you have the trusts that control mining rights in the Congo.
Okay.
Now,
Before we go into that,
please.
Before we go into that, I wanted to bring out something
Absolutely.
that is connected with the 4 countries that you have mentioned.
Yes.
The 4 in North Africa, which we consider not to be ours. The leadership of those countries say that we, as Africans, black Africans, I should say, all Africans, black Africans, I could say that, don't really approach them or consider them to be part of us. We look at them more as they are from the Middle East, the Arab side, and that could be in itself a big problem. So when we go to them, because right from what you just said right now is that it's like, okay, they are not part of us, but in reality they are saying, look, when we want to be part of Africa, the people don't seem to want to be part of us to be part of Africa, and the late Idi Amin, Ugandan president, also said it years ago. He said, look, we have to welcome them so that at the end of the day, they feel welcome because they're part of the continent.
They feel very welcome.
Yeah.
And the key is that sometimes, because we're an emotional people, we just don't have the genetic makeup for racism. Unfortunately, we live in a globally based racial economic system. So the minute that I mention race, we are talking about competition. Because we don't have a nature for competing, we listen to words. So our North African brothers can articulate anything. And on an individual level, I will respect you and we'll have a relationship. But unfortunately, when it comes to a national question, that respect isn't reciprocal. So we only have to look at the cases of what's going on in the world today with our brothers and sisters as they're in these nations. So I can listen to your articulation, which might be as superior as Tony Blair, where for all your hyperbole, you confuse me for 5 minutes and say absolutely nothing. But then my actual eye shows me something very different in reality. Now, as a father, my role is to protect my family, my missus, and my son, right? Now, if that is the nature that I have, that means that I'm watching what you do, and I'm not listening to what you're saying. Because if the two don't correlate, my role remains to protect my family. Now, I represent more than just myself. So my role is to protect my global family. So if I consider myself a custodian and I extrapolate you from the equation immediately, it's based on what you do, not on what you say. Because North Africa is very welcome in the African Union. All of us can agree. However, melanated Africans aren't so welcome in the North African countries. And we don't speak on articulation, but on the treatment of the bodies on the ground. You see, our Prime Minister can talk about diversity and inclusion. I just look at the treatment on the ground. And I have clarity from what you do, not your hyperbole.
Okay, I see your point, and I won't go beyond it, because as you're saying, the practical side really matters quite a lot, because what you say and what you whether we should welcome them with...
Preach and what you practice. If I see that there's a dichotomy between the two, then I will go with what you do, not with what you say.
Well, what you say. Now, before we go any further, over 100 youth were killed on London streets last year due to knife crime. And they come from a variety of countries. Their parents came from Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Zimbabwe. You name all the countries, or practically almost all the countries, including, in fact, some from North Africa, you know, from Morocco, and I think one from Egypt, or several of them, and Algeria. So you've worked with the youth, and there are groups that you've worked with that involve a lot of African youth. What you seem to think is the problem? Is there a political side of it? Because the Mayor of London was informed. They have all come up with with the plans. They have come up with this and that.
First and foremost, there are no plans.
There are no plans.
Again, there is hyperbole. So last Wednesday, I was at the Mayor's Question Time in Wandsworth.
Yeah.
All of the beautiful articulation you could imagine. We're going to practice the public health approach. Now I'm swapping hats specifically on the question that we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm also the business development manager of Access UK, which is a youth training and employment organization.
Yeah.
Where our managing director, Nana Ajiman, has been working tirelessly for 5 years. So both of us come from a very similar background, in that we know poverty is the best disinfectant for human decency. So there's a reason that I have a particular lens and he has a particular lens. It's because we come a place where there were no economics and no prevailing wisdom. That means we were left to Lord of the Flies to figure it out for ourselves.
The Lord of the Flies.
So once you master the realms of Lord of the Flies, it means that you have gone through all the developmental stages, unable to skip any development levels.
All right.
You see, when you Boris and you go to Eton, you can skip all of the developmental levels and you get the superior wisdom based on wise men's machinations. We figured it out by ourselves. So there's nothing about quantifying what is going on today that you're going to rediscover America for either of us. So to break it down to its essence, what you are looking at is third and fourth generation young people who have become more English. Now, what you should take comfort in is that gang violence is no new phenomenon in the United Kingdom.
No, it isn't.
So there was a book called The Elephant Boys that was written in 1981 that I read in 1996, which was about the British gangs. So when you see these guys like Peaky Blinders, and you see the Krays and the Richardsons, the Rockers and the Mods, they were stabbing each other for the past 100+ years. Now, all of these things are very well documented in this book. Now you look at the phenomenon of integration. We as a people feel more of a need to integrate than any other communities. So you see the Greek community, you'll go down to Green Lanes and you see a Greek bank, right? You'll see this community, you see the Pakistani community, you see the Habib Bank. Now, when it comes to Africans and Caribbeans, there's a lack of an economic structure. There's a lack of effective employers to take our children. So our children go and beg other people for employment. Now, when you see the futility of that in your own parents, are you going to duplicate what they do?
I don't think so.
No. So now you have no prevailing wisdom, which means again you are left in Lord of the Flies. For lack of a prevailing wisdom, you take up peer wisdom, which is no wisdom. So now you're food. And unfortunately today, the criminal classes who are between 30 and 40 are predatory in their nature, where they groom young people. Now, that's not African culture. It's not Caribbean culture. It's Eastern European culture. Now, you learn that from your paymasters, where you acquire your drugs and your guns from. Who did it for the sex trade, which is how they established their economy. So if you look at the Polish, who were originally bringing in young ladies who they promised jobs, who ended up prostitutes, trapped in flats as sex slaves. There's an entire economy that was built on that.
Okay, yeah, I do.
So once you understand the nature of where our young men between 30 and 40 have acquired these predatory skills that they're employing on their own young people, including sexual exploitation, to embarrass young men. So young men are being raped as much as young women to embarrass them and recorded on mobile devices so they can humiliate them.
Yeah.
So now I've added blackmail to the fold.
Now,
So now you are a slave for perpetuity, right? Based on shame.
I'm looking at Africa Diaspora Political Action Committee. You have a situation which is similar, which is like this,
Yes.
and you within the black community. You are saying we could do something about this.
Absolutely.
Where do you start from? Because
With
where do you start from with the knife crime issue? Because if you're going to sit them,
So the first thing, you've got to look at the solution makers, the grassroots solution makers.
yeah,
First thing I said when I came in this room,
yeah.
no substitute for lived experience.
Okay.
So it's not incumbent upon me. The whole point of the organization is the first thing we do is a skills audit of grassroots delivery organizations. And then we are supposed to create a database
Yeah.
going across education. So in the first instance, rites of passage, African rites of passage for young men and women as Access UK. This time last year, we did a survey within a meeting that we had with 80 youth engagement practitioners.
Yeah.
And 100% adoption was on 100% of our youth should go through African rites of passage. Single parent, 2.5 children family, both parents, £1 million, £1,000 every 6 months, irrelevant. It gives you a high cultural self-esteem. It gives you your context within society as a citizen, and it gives you a great start. So irrespective of racism that you encounter,
Yeah.
you have a high cultural self-esteem. Now, if you go to sessions every Saturday, I am my brother's keeper and my sister's protector.
Yeah.
Is it possible for you to take a cold piece of metal and stab your brother
I don't think so.
in 5 years' time?
No,
Fine.
I don't think so.
So we are obligated, again, I come back to the source, to uphold, promote, and preserve our culture, right? So once you've understood the phenomenon that have created the problem, you now understand uniquely how to counter the problem. And you start to line up all of the solution makers.
Yeah.
So effective entrepreneur training.
Okay.
So one of the big programs that we're about to release in Access UK, the Road CEO,
Yeah.
which is a video resource in an app giving you hundreds of hours of African Caribbean entrepreneurs who look like you, that you can relate to, with similar stories, who've overcome poverty and landed here successfully. So now you've got the black print to enter the marketplace and discover wherever your entry points are in compartmentalized business skills.
Is there room there to go into schools as a motivational speaker? To go into schools?
It has to
as,
be.
as you're saying with the
It's a
education.
parallel.
It's there.
It's a parallel.
Yeah.
So one of my brothers, Says Home Lewis, has an organization called Mentivity,
Yeah.
who provide
Yeah.
mentors for schools.
Yeah.
So rather than say Mentivity is a small organization with a finite amount of mentors,
It's attached
what
to
do,
you.
What do? We systemize it. So ADPAC's role is to identify and education all of those grassroots organizations and make systematic responses. So when we are drawing down on the subscriptions from the members, our job is to train the trainers.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that then nationally we can duplicate out exactly what those organizations do.
Okay.
So we say, what does Mentivity do? They go into schools and they may be in 20 to 30 schools.
Yeah.
So then we quantify how many schools our children are in nationally, and then we grow it out. We train the trainers.
Okay.
We raise the finance to provide the money. So the essence of representing 2 million African diasporan people in London and 3 million African diasporan people in the UK is to say, if you have a budget that you're releasing in our name, we're going to be at the table. One of our representatives will be there. You're not going to do this handoff that you usually do, where your old Etonian is here, you're here, you don't know each other, and then the funds get crossed over. There's going to be an African at the table, and we're going to make sure that that is disseminated to the correct outlet. Now that outlet will become systematic in the training of the trainers, and we duplicate nationally. And then the national leadership deal with all of the regional leadership. Sheffield, Manchester, Luton, Leeds, the Midlands. And there's no more time in history that we're going to be left out of budgets that you say are in our name.
One thing is, chapters, as you've called them, I've seen the constitution. It's quite interesting. Elections or appointed to the various areas. How are you scrutinizing these people to ensure that you have the right people? Because you're going to have Nigerians, you're going to have Ghanaians, you're going to have Ugandans, you're going to have a variety of diaspora Africans involved in there. But you need to pick out who is the right person to represent most of these chapters. And the issue is, it's going to come back to you. Do you look at the people's CVs? Do you look at how are you going to make? Because when we become members,
the first thing I said,
when we become members, are we supposed to sit down and say, right, Stephen Mulindwa is got to be an elected member, and then others support him? Or do we say, can we do what we call ventilating and ventilate and ensure that we know that the person we're putting in that position is not either a criminal or someone who might deal, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
How do you do that? How is that going to be done?
Your CV can say anything. However, your track record
has to speak for you.
Says everything. Now, when you have a track record, you have a demonstrable background. So if you wanted to become a regional chair, for instance, and to speak about the regional chair role, this is someone who has